Okay, I'm going to be so excited to dive into these Dynasty rankings for y'all. We're going to go through our top 24 running backs. We have training camp updates. We have some updates to the rankings themselves. But before we get into it, please go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And if you haven't heard, we have our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide now available over there on flockfantasy.com. And everything before the kickoff of the season on flockfantasy.com is on sale if you use promo code FLOCK, of course. But that should be it. Let's go ahead. Let's dive into these rankings. Let's lead it off with Jonathan Taylor at 1, tier 1 by himself. What am I supposed to say? The man broke out in year 2 last year. He was one of the best running back prospects we've ever seen coming out of Wisconsin. 2,000-yard season, 2,000-yard season, 2,000-yard season. Some people argue that he has a massive quarterback upgrade this year with Matt Ryan. I don't think it's that big of a quarterback upgrade, if I'm going to be completely honest. But still, he was the running back 1 last year. He was an elite level prospect. He's in a great situation. Tier 1 by himself. Let's move on. Now, tier 2, this is where we are probably going to have some disagreements because it is now officially the cool thing. I don't know if you noticed this, but the entire fantasy football community is in an echo chamber. One person makes a video, writes an article, makes a podcast saying, oh, DAndre Swift is this year's breakout. He's the next Christian McCaffrey for reasons X, Y, and Z. Someone reads that article and they go, oh, I'm going to make a video on that. Then the next guy goes, oh, I'm going to make a video. And then all of a sudden, everybody's trying to one-up each other on how much they love DAndre Swift. Last year was the time to get in on DAndre Swift, guys. You are late. Don't try to overcompensate for it now. We are going to have Najee Harris at 2. Najee Harris, yes, reports coming out saying, oh, he's not going to have the same role he did last. Why not? Who else did they bring in? He's going to be an every down running back going into year 2. Yes, he's going to be older than a lot of other players considering his draft class. But keep in mind, even though he stayed all 5 years at Alabama, he was drafted last year. He's on his rookie deal. And since he was taken in the first round, he has that 5th-year option as well. I'm going to go Najee Harris at 2. We will have DAndre Swift at 3, although I've loved DAndre Swift since he entered the NFL as one of my most drafted players in Dynasty and redraft last year. I do think it's just funny. Like if we head over to, say, Underdog Fantasy right now to look at some 2022 fantasy football ADP, over there on Underdog Fantasy and redraft formats, you have DAndre Swift. Now people are trying to make the argument to draft him over Najee Harris. I think that's crazy. It's going to be one of those instances where I still have DAndre Swift on so many Dynasty teams from trading for him last year. But in redraft, I'm probably out on Swift. I'm sorry to say it. Of course, if you are not drafting fantasy football teams right now, what are you doing? Go fix your life. Go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. When you sign up for Underdog Fantasy and you use promo code FLOCK to hop in some real money fantasy football drafts this year, they will match your deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. So it's literally free for you to play. And with a $10 deposit, you're getting our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide if you use promo code FLOCK. Make sure you take advantage of that link in the description. But let's move on. Let's go down to our next tier. Javonte Williams is not going to be at 4. We are going to have Breece Hall at 4. Probably surprising some people. I don't care. He's a rookie. He checks every single box. He has the size we look for. He had the collegiate workload that we look for. He was an elite level athlete at the combine. He was a great pass catcher in college. He should be that great pass catcher in year 1 in New York. Now, I've been on record saying I don't think Zach Wilson's a great NFL quarterback. Now we know Zach Wilson's a freaking dog. We now know that. We have to adjust these ranks, but I'm going to have Breece Hall at 4. I think that it's better to get in early on these rookies before you see the massive jump in price going into year 2. I think Breece Hall is going to be an immediate top 24 running back. Look at how Javonte Williams had a meteoric rise in his own dynasty value, despite not being a league winner his rookie season. I think Breece Hall can be that league winner. He's younger. We're going to go Hall at 4. Then running back 5, we will have Javonte with Javonte Williams. He would have been up there with Najee Harris and DAndre Swift if it wasn't for Melvin Gordon re-signing. I mean, if you go over and you look at our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide, you will see in games that Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon played together last year, you did have Melvin Gordon leading this offense and carries per game, rushing yards per game, yards per carry, fantasy points per game. Melvin Gordon was the quote-unquote running back 1A to Javonte Williams running back 1B last year in games they played together. I'm expecting Javonte Williams to be the running back 1 this season, but he will be in a committee. Next year is the year of Javonte Williams. So, of course, in Dynasty, we're going to be willing to buy into that now. We will have him at running back 5. Now, let's drop us down a tier and let's go to running back 6, Christian McCaffrey. Now, with CMC, of course, you are making a massive risk. You are taking on a massive risk if you draft Christian McCaffrey, say in the 3rd round of your Dynasty startup draft. Because if CMC were to go down, even if it's a random fluke injury, say he pulls a Keenan Allen and he has a kidney laceration this year. I'm not wishing this on the man. I'm just saying if he has a random fluke injury, you're not going to be able to get a bag of potato chips for Christian McCaffrey in trade next offseason in Dynasty. People will just be completely off of him. He'll have no value whatsoever anymore. But at the end of the day, despite being drafted in 2017, Christian McCaffrey is still an incredibly young running back, 2 years younger than Derrick Henry, almost 3 years younger than Derrick Henry. And with Christian McCaffrey, he has access to a ceiling in a PPR format that is legitimately absurd. Like, let me go over, pull up our 2022 fantasy football draft guide so I can give you a little bit of a taste of how good that 2019 season was for CMC. I don't need to remind you, but I'm going to do it just because it's fun. If we look at running backs to score 28 points per game since the year 2000, Christian McCaffrey, LaDainian Tomlinson, Marshall Faulk, and Priest Holmes. Those were the running backs that were able to do it. CMC has the upside to break fantasy football. We'll have him at 6. We'll have Austin Eckler at 7. I honestly kind of want to move Eckler down here a little bit. In that same 2017 draft class, older than Christian McCaffrey, however. Now, he doesn't have the same injury concerns, but he doesn't have the same upside as well. And we'll have Joe Mixon as our running back 8. Love Mixon in a redraft. Like, on Underdog Fantasy right now, Mixon's going almost an entire round behind Austin Eckler, which in my opinion is absolutely crazy. If you're looking at the offensive line upgrade that you have in Cincinnati from leading the NFL in sacks allowed to now this upcoming season, PFF has them ranked as a top 10 unit. Love me some Joe Mixon. Man's only 25. Now let's move down to our next tier, leading off with someone that I was finally able to skyrocket in my Dynasty rankings. We are going to have Travis Etienne here. Sounds like Etienne is set to go. With Travis Etienne, I need to be the first person to admit this. Oh, dear God. I know it's going to be very embarrassing. I told people to draft him over Kyle Pitts last year in tight end premium formats. I told people to draft Travis Etienne over Kyle Pitts, despite us admitting that Kyle Pitts was the best tight end prospect of all time. I looked at Travis Etienne as a running back that was just a clone of DAndre Swift coming out of Clemson. Y'all know how much I love DAndre Swift. We called them the new age Aaron Jones, the new age Alvin Kamara, the running back that gets every target out of the backfield, the running back that gets every red zone touch as well. Not every touch in their backfield, but every high valuable touch in this offense. So I love me some Travis Etienne. We were able to skyrocket him up our rankings because it sounds like the injury is just no longer a concern whatsoever. Of course, you have the coaching staff upgrade, which is exciting as well. But let's go to our running back 10, another running back that's similar to Christian McCaffrey in that he truly does have that elite level ceiling. Like if we go through and we look at his 2019 season and we look at the fact that he had almost a 20% team target share and 72% of his team's carries on a per game basis, the only running backs to hit those marks over the past 3 years have been Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley. Like Saquon Barkley is also getting the quarterback upgrade with Daniel Jones over Mike Glennon, who we had to deal with at the end of last year. He's getting the coaching staff upgrade. Brian Daboll coming over from the Buffalo Bills. That should be very exciting if this offense is just finally able to move the ball. Just please, please don't be one of the worst offenses in the NFL. I like Saquon Barkley. I think you can make the argument that he is the most talented running back in the NFL while healthy outside of Christian McCaffrey. He is still young. He was drafted in 2018. We'll have him at 10. Now our next running back at 11, coming off a torn Achilles. Yes. Coming off a torn Achilles. We are going to have Cam Akers. Now with Cam Akers, he checked every single box coming out of Florida State. Of course, he was the 5-star prospect that everybody knew and loved going to Florida State. Struggled because they had the worst offensive line in college football. But beyond that, he was a great pass-catching running back at Florida State if you look at his target share. On top of that, he was a massive running back at the NFL Combine that demonstrated elite-level athleticism. He goes in round 2 of the NFL Draft, just checking every single box we need to see. Then he breaks out at the end of his rookie year. You're looking at 21 carries, 29 carries, 15 carries, 21 carries, 28 carries, 18 carries over the past 6 weeks. And he was effective with those as well. I mean, he was racking up 5 yards per carry, essentially, with that workload. I love me some Cam Akers. He was an elite level prospect. He's playing in an elite level offense. You have no Sony Michel. Kyron Williams broke his foot earlier this offseason. There are a lot of positive indicators for Cam Akers, but of course, the injury is very, very concerning. Actually, as we say this, thank God we made this video, because I think as we talk through this out loud, we probably need to move Cam Akers and our next running back down a tier. So I'm sorry to do this to you, Thomas. Well, let's go. Travis Etienne, Saquon Barkley, tier 5. Tier 6, Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins, very similar to Akers. I will say, I don't think Dobbins is as solid of a prospect coming out of Ohio State. He was still an elite level athlete, a little bit smaller than Cam Akers, not as good of a pass catching running back, but he's playing in the most efficient rushing offense in the NFL here with Baltimore. He led the NFL, not rookies. He led the NFL in yards per carry his rookie season. Some of that's due to his extreme talent level. Some of that's due to the fact that he's playing with Lamar Jackson, playing in that Baltimore offense. But got news for you. He's playing in that Baltimore offense this upcoming season as well. So we will have Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins in the same tier here at 6. Now let's move down to tier 7. Let's lead us off with another 2018 running back. Let's look over there at Nick Chubb. With Nick Chubb, thinking about the long term, the long term, you are not going to have Kareem Hunt in Cleveland next year. Not only are you not going to have Kareem Hunt in Cleveland, Watson, I'm going out on a limb. I'm recording this before we have any Watson news, but Watson should be starting the entire year next year. So you're going to be looking at the Cleveland Browns as a team that right now PFF has them ranked as the number 2 offensive line in the NFL. Possibly, just possibly. And y'all know I've never been a massive Nick Chubb fan. Nick Chubb was a fade for us last year at his price point because he was in a committee. But you're going to be looking at him with the potential, just potential, to be a feature down running back in Cleveland in the best offense he's ever played in, if Watson is to play, which I'm assuming that he is. Now, he's not as young as someone like Barkley, who was also in that 2018 draft class because he did stay all 4 years at Georgia due to the significant injury he suffered in his collegiate career. But still, I think you can make the argument that Nick Chubb is very exciting. Looking at 2 other running backs, they're going to be the same age. They were in the draft class before, though. We're going to have Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, running backs 14, 15. Not too much to discuss here. These are running backs that are teetering on historically the age cliff where running backs fall off the side of the planet. These running backs that historically over the past 5-6 years have not been able to produce at 27 years old or later. But remember, if you read our Dynasty research book, we talk about why that may have been, and it wasn't necessarily the exact age of the running back. It was the fact that back in the day in 2013, 2014, 2015, besides Todd Gurley, you had just the worst running backs classes that we've ever seen. So I think that maybe these running backs can keep it up for a couple more years despite the guys before them not being able to. Let's not just say Le'Veon Bell failed, David Johnson failed. So that means Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara will fail when they turn 27. Let's hope that's not the case. Let's hope they can keep it around for a couple more seasons. But let's go down to our next tier. We're going to have Kenneth Walker, running back 16, Derrick Henry, running back 17. With Kenneth Walker, he's in a bad spot. Now, I'm not expecting Rashad Penny to be healthy throughout the entire season. I think in redraft right now, like if you head over to Underdog Fantasy to look at where Kenneth Walker is going in redraft, he's falling to the end of round 10 in some of these leagues, which makes sense because Penny should be the starter to start the year. And the Seattle Seahawks should have one of the worst offenses in the NFL. It's not even talk about quarterback, but PFF ranked their offensive line as the worst offensive line in the NFL. And with Kenneth Walker, he's a very strong first and second down RB. Very, very strong. I mean, he could profile to be a slightly worse version of Nick Chubb, but he's not going to have the passing down role in Seattle. I don't even know who will because Penny hasn't caught passes over the past few years. But with Kenneth Walker, so a running back that's a first and second down grinder behind a horrible offensive line that may start the year as a backup. But in Dynasty, keep in mind, we got to look at that long-term approach. We can't assume that the Seattle Seahawks, who historically have been a competent franchise with multiple first-round picks this year, next year, on top of that, a lot of cap space, are just going to flounder the next 4 years when you have a very, very old head coach there. So I think they can turn things around next year with Kenneth Walker Penny on the 1-year deal as well. So we will have Kenneth Walker. He's definitely a long-term play. In the same tier, we're going to have Derrick Henry. Of course, two complete opposite players. If you're a contender, go get Derrick Henry. If you're a rebuilder, go get Kenneth Walker. With Derrick Henry, he's not the same age as Alvin Kamara. He's not the same age as Dalvin Cook. Derrick Henry, when this season ends, will turn 29. So this upcoming offseason, almost regardless of what Derrick Henry does this year, he is going to lose a substantial amount of value. You don't go into your age 29 offseason and all of a sudden be able to hold on to dynasty value. I'm telling you right now, it doesn't matter what Derrick Henry does this year. He's going to be a declining asset in terms of his trade value over the next 12 months. Now, of course, he's still a fine asset to have. If you're not worried about his trade value and you're worried about the points he's going to get you this year, hell, they should be there, and they should be plenty. Now, our next tier, let's go to David Montgomery, running back 18, Josh Jacobs, running back 19. I think you could easily make the argument that these players are too high. I think they could be as low as 21, 22. I think these guys are all in an exact same tier. Josh Jacobs did not have his 5th-year option picked up. I would imagine that Jacobs does get a second contract somewhere on a second team this offseason, similar to David Montgomery. David Montgomery also on the last year of his rookie deal. But these running backs had decent profiles coming into the NFL. These running backs have been effective throughout their rookie contracts. While the 2023 running back class is pretty damn good, I think Montgomery and Josh Jacobs will still have jobs next year. Josh Jacobs is like a couple months older than Najee Harris. Now, our next running back in this year, Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson's a wild card. I mean, we could easily see this Washington coaching staff just decide, you know what? We tried it. We tried to turn the wide receiver into a running back. It didn't work out. He can't stop fumbling. He led the NFL in fumbles last year. Let's go re-sign J.D. McKissick. Let's go draft Brian Robinson Jr. in the top 100 picks. Let's turn this into a full-blown running back by committee. And then all of a sudden, next offseason, Antonio Gibson's worth nothing. He's looking like the bag of potato chips we talked about with a potential scenario with an injured Christian McCaffrey. But it's also possible that, hell, maybe it just took the collegiate wide receiver who is an elite level athlete, ran a 4.39 40-yard dash, 228 pounds. Maybe it just took him a little bit of time. Maybe we should have expected him early on in his NFL career to deal with fumbling issues. Maybe we should have expected him to deal with pass blocking issues and that he doesn't really know which assignment to go to. And that's not going to lead to him getting usage on 3rd down. And instead they have to use J.D. McKissick. We could easily be living in a world 12 months from now where regardless of what happens, there's going to be a crowd of people saying, I told you you're an idiot for valuing Antonio Gibson there. This team's going full blown, but running back by committee. You can't take a committee running back in a bad offense. There's going to be another crowd. This could happen. Goes, you shouldn't have given up on the former collegiate wide receiver. That's the elite level athlete that still needed time to develop at the running back position. Running back 21, A.J. Dillon. Now, if the Green Bay Packers were to move on from Aaron Jones next offseason, which is possible, it's not necessarily guaranteed. But if the Green Bay Packers were to move on from Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon in these dynasty rankings would jump Gibson, jump Jacobs, jump Montgomery, jump Derrick Henry, jump Kenneth Walker, jump next offseason whenever you're looking at Alvin Kamara or Dalvin Cook going into their age 28 season. And if A.J. Dillon was the starting running back for the Green Bay Packers, he would jump Kamara, he would jump Dalvin Cook. Like A.J. Dillon could easily rise from here. Now, I think you should value A.J. Dillon with your opinion on how likely you think it is that the Green Bay Packers decide to move on from Aaron Jones. Now, let me pull up this Aaron Jones contract so I can give you the exact number on how much money they would save from moving on from Aaron Jones. But here, this is a team that would save about $10.5 million next year, which $10.5 million is a lot at the running back position. So if you think that they decide, hell, why are we paying a running back that's going into his age 29 season $10.5 million if we don't have to? Let's move on from him. Then, dear God, A.J. Dillon is way too low in these rankings. Now, our next running back 22, Elijah Mitchell, a running back that as a rookie goes out there, posts 100 total yards a game. So, of course, this looks like just possibly one of the worst rankings of all time. Now, what I will say is, if you go through and you look at what Kyle Shanahan has done through his time in San Francisco, he doesn't care about the running back name. he's going to churn through these guys. 2017, Carlos Hyde, leading rusher. 2018, Matt Breida, leading rusher. Then after that, Tevin Coleman, Jeff Wilson, Elijah Mitchell over the next 3 years. He's never had a running back repeat as a leading rusher while he's been the head coach for the San Francisco 49ers. That is concerning. It's concerning that Elijah Mitchell also does not catch passes out of the backfield. It's concerning that he may be vultured with his rushing touchdowns from either Deebo Samuel or Trey Lance, but he does look like he's pretty talented. He is on a rookie deal. Just put up 100 yards as a rookie per game. Now, our next two running backs in the tier below, we have 4 guys here, but we'll give you our top 24. Well, Thomas, throw some question marks on those last guys. We'll get to them in another video. But we'll have Aaron Jones, running back 23, Leonard Fournette, running back 24. It's going to be the contenders tier. If you are a contending team this upcoming season and you need to buy discounted production, I honestly prefer going and buying Leonard Fournette in Dynasty. I prefer going and buying Leonard Fournette because if you're going to trade for Dalvin, you're going to trade for Alvin Kamara, you're paying a 2023 first. But nobody's going to expect that return for Leonard Fournette. I mean, I think you could get away with possibly packaging a second-round pick and then a depth wide receiver like a Michael Gallup to get there with Leonard Fournette. Same thing with Aaron Jones. I think these should be running backs that give you production this season, both 2017 players. Long-term, we definitely have our question marks, but short-term, they should be hyper-productive. But that should be it for this video. Please go down there, drop that like, leave a comment, letting me know how stupid I am. Subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And if you want to get our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide, make sure you head over to flockfantasy.com. Use promo code FLOCK if you want a discount on anything on flockfantasy.com. Or go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Deposit $10 on Underdog Fantasy. Get that deposit matched, so it's essentially free for you. And then on top of it, you get our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide sent to your email. But thank you again. I appreciate all of y'all. Really hope you have a great day. Really hope we get to see you with the video tomorrow. And yeah, thank you.